What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Lions video. Today, we will be talking about the best draft situation for our Detroit Lions, going from best to worst, talking about the best things they can do on draft night, talking about the worst things that they can do on draft night, and what they can do to set themselves up for the most future success. Now, before we get into the video and before we start talking about the Detroit Lions best draft scenarios, if you're new to the channel and you're enjoying the content, please consider liking the videos and subscribing to the channel. It takes just 2 seconds out of you to do so. It's quick, free, and easy, and you'd be helping the channel out more than you could possibly know. So if you could take those 2 seconds to like and subscribe and maybe just hit the notification bell, I'd be greatly appreciative for it. But with all of that being said, without any further ado, let's get into talking about the Lions' best potential draft scenarios once draft night rolls around. Now, there are a multitude of different ways the Detroit Lions can go once they are on the clock in the NFL draft. They could either select a player at 7, they could trade down, they could look for an offensive weapon, an offensive guard, a pass protector, a defensive player. They could look to trade through multiple different teams and multiple different picks throughout the remainder of the first round. There's really infinite possibilities on what the Lions can do once the 7th overall pick rolls around. And who knows, they might not even wait till the 7th overall pick. We just saw the Miami Dolphins, 49ers, as well as the Philadelphia Eagles make a big blockbuster draft trade before the draft even began. So with there being so many potential outcomes for the Detroit Lions, what would be the best possibility and the best outcome to set the Lions up for future success? I think the best option, and I have said this multiple times for the Detroit Lions, I believe the best option and the best potential scenario for draft night would be trading away the 7th overall pick and getting a multitude of picks back in return for, of course, their 7th pick. Now, if you look at some of the value over the past couple of years, and especially the value that was just given up for a top 10 pick, teams are going to be willing to give up a lot of draft capital to move up, especially if they believe their guy is going to be there. The 49ers gave up a 2021 first round pick, a 2022 second round pick, a 2023 first round pick, as well as a 2021 third round pick to move up just 7 spots to get to the 3rd overall pick. Now, of course, if a team were to move up with Detroit, they would not be getting to the 3rd overall pick. However, they would be getting a top 10 draft selection. They would likely still have a top quarterback prospect on the board. They would likely still have a top offensive lineman prospect on the board, as well as at least 1, if not 2 or 3, big-time top offensive weapons still on the board. So the Lions, although they will not be picking with the 3rd overall spot, they will still have a lot of talent on the board and will still have a lot of teams looking to move up to get either a top quarterback, a top pass protector, or to get their quarterback, their young players, a top weapon to integrate into their offense. Now, with that being the case, I think there are a lot of teams that could look to trade up with the Detroit Lions to number 7. The Carolina Panthers make a little bit of sense if they believe the Lions will take a quarterback and they want that last big name quarterback off the board. They could likely give up a little bit to trade up to trade from 8 to 7. Denver could be the same way if they want to add either an offensive lineman, if they want to get a Rashawn Slater, or if Penei Sewell falls, they could look to trade ahead of Carolina and look to jump Detroit, since they are likely looking at an offensive line prospect, as they attended both Penei Sewell's pro day as well as Rashawn Slater's. You go down to a couple of picks later, you have the Los Angeles Chargers. They may look to trade up to get Justin Herbert some more protection. They may look to trade up to get a Rashawn Slater or a Penei Sewell. If either of them do happen to fall, they could look to get their rookie of the year quarterback more protection so he doesn't get hit as often. You look at guys like the Patriots. They may be looking to move up to get that last quarterback off the board. You look at maybe Pittsburgh Steelers or, some other teams that could be a little quarterback needy, or you look at maybe the Buffalo Bills. We've talked about them in the past, potentially moving up to get a big-time weapon to put alongside Stephon Diggs. That could be a potential scenario. So there's not really going to be a lack of NFL teams looking to move up with the Detroit Lions. And looking at what the 49ers just gave up to move up 9 spots in the NFL draft, if you're talking about a team in the late teens, the early 20s, they're going to be giving up a lot of draft capital to move ahead of all of those teams to get the player that they wish. Now, are we going to get 3 first-round picks as well as a third-round pick for the 7th overall selection? I don't think so. I don't think we're going to get quite the value that the Miami Dolphins got for the 3rd overall pick, but we should get at least a 2021 and at least a 2022 first-round pick as well as a later pick this year. We should get at least 2 firsts and something else out of the deal if we do trade down, especially considering and especially if the scenario involves a team like Washington or a team that is lower down in the draft order, a team that is in the late teens, early 20s. They would have to give up that much more capital to move that much farther up in the NFL draft. I believe the Detroit Lions should look to move down. I think it makes the most sense for the team. I think it makes the most sense from a future building standpoint. The Lions do have a lot of holes on their roster. The Lions do not have a great wide receiver core. The Lions do not have a great defense. The Lions do not have a lot of pieces to be real competitors at this point. So moving down in the first round, getting an extra first round pick, getting maybe a 3rd or an early 4th round pick could be a big time upgrade and could help the Lions rebuild or get these pieces in the door that much faster. Going into next season, a lot of people don't have a lot of faith. A lot of people don't think the Lions will be very good next year. I disagree. I think the Lions will be okay. I think they'll be competitive. I think 7 to 9 wins is pretty realistic for this Lions squad, the way that it is and with these new coaches. But a lot of people think going into next offseason is going to be a lot of big time spending and a lot of upgrades for our Lions team. And if they do trade back, if they do acquire an extra first round pick for next year's draft, that would give them 3 in the first round, along with a lot of compensatory picks, along with the picks that they already have accumulated. That could be a really big offseason for the Detroit Lions. Not to mention, trading down, I believe, gives the Lions actually more value in the draft, as yes, if they do stay at 7, I would wish that they would take an offensive tackle because that makes the most sense, but they have a lot of problems on defense. So if they trade down into the mid-teams, that gives them access to linebackers, it gives them access to a top defensive tackle, that gives them access to, top secondary players if they want to go that route, that gives them access to a lot of other players on the defensive side of the ball, as well as if they want a wide receiver, still allowing them to maybe go a Rashad Bateman or a Terrence Marshall Jr. or potentially a Devontae Smith if he does fall a little bit, which I do think he actually will in this draft class. Trading down I think makes the most sense. It gives the Lions access to more players, more positions of need, more positions of value. It gives the Lions more opportunity to take more players, and of course gives them more picks to get better players in the door and really try to get this rebuild, this retool, whatever you want to call it, underway. Now, if the Lions are stuck at the 7th overall pick, right? Let's say a very similar situation to last year has occurred where the Lions are not getting the value they want. The Lions aren't getting really offers that they think are valid for the 7th overall pick. What should they do if they are stuck at pick number 7? I believe the best pick, and I've talked about this yet again, I believe the best pick would be an offensive lineman. Now, some people disagree with this. A lot of people think that a weapon should be taken or a quarterback, whichever quarterback is left, should be taken off the board by Detroit. I don't see this being the case. I don't see this happening, nor do I think this is going to happen for the Detroit Lions, or do I think it should happen for the Detroit Lions. The Lions have a quarterback. Jared Goff is not a bad quarterback. Is he a downgrade from Matthew Stafford? Yeah, he absolutely is. Does that mean he's a bad quarterback? It does absolutely not. Jared Goff, without any help, I would say is a top 20 quarterback in the NFL. There are 12 other starting quarterbacks that I would put below Jared Goff, and that is at a minimum. I could probably name 15 to 17 quarterbacks that I would take over Jared Goff, or that I would put very closely to Jared Goff in the rankings. He is a very serviceable quarterback. He is a quarterback that has shown he can win, that he has the ability to lead a football team to a Super Bowl, which is something the Lions haven't seen in a very long time. Again, not because of the talent at quarterback, but because the team around Matthew Stafford was not very good. Jared Goff has shown you that with a good team around him, with the right pieces, he can take your team to a Super Bowl, and eventually at the end of the day, that is where you want your team to be. Now, Jared Goff's success in LA predicated a lot on his protection, predicated a lot on him having a good offensive lineman that gave him a lot of time in the pocket. The Lions have a very solid foundation right now with their offensive line, with Taylor Decker playing very well last year at the left tackle position, Jonah Jackson showing a lot of flash and showing a lot of very good things in his rookie season at the left guard spot, with Frank Ragnow arguably being the best center in the NFL. that's a really good starting three. That's a really good left to center of your offensive line. And really, the Lions may have two positions left to fill out with young, studded players, because Taylor Decker is young, Frank Ragnow is young, Jonah Jackson is young. They are young, really good players that will solidify this offensive line for a very long time. With Big V potentially moving to guard, that could give them another young player, and if he does develop correctly and does play well at that guard position, that is yet another young stud player that would be at the offensive line, leaving just the right tackle. Now, the right tackle could be filled at number 7 with Rashawn Slater, or if the Lions are lucky enough, Penei Sewell may fall to them. There's been a lot of rumors about that, and the Lions, of course, as many other teams did attend Penei Sewell's impressive pro day a day or two ago. So if the Lions are stuck with the 7th overall pick, I believe the best pick and I believe the best situation for them would be to finish off that offensive line. Finish off the unit, really complete that offense for the 2020 season, give Goff as your starting quarterback, a really good core around him, give it a solid 5 offensive line across, with the only real weak spot being Big V at that right guard position. But at that point, you have Frank Ragnow that can help him, you have Rashawn Slater that can help him. There should be not a lot of problems there if that is the offensive line, with Decker at left tackle, Jackson at left guard, Ragnow at center, Big V at right guard, and Rashawn Slater at right tackle. That should be a really good top 5 caliber offensive line to give Goff. That should be a really good offensive line for DeAndre Swift, Kerryon Johnson, and Jamal Williams to run behind. That should give our wide receivers extra and ample time to get open, run good routes, and should give our offensive coordinator a lot of flexibility and a lot of freedom to draw up things that he wants to do, because that offensive line will be giving Goff and our running backs a ton of time and space. With that being the case, the Lions are stuck at the 7th overall pick. They need to take an offensive lineman, and they cannot afford, nor do they have the luxury to be taking a wide receiver. And that is the last situation we'll be talking about today, is if the Lions look to take an offensive weapon like a wide receiver or potentially tight end Kyle Pitts. I believe this would be the worst thing for the Lions to do at the 7th overall spot, with a team that really doesn't have a lot going for it, and a team that still has a lot of holes going into next season. They can't afford, nor do they have the luxury to be taking a wide receiver. Regardless if it's Ja'Marr Chase, Jalen Waddle, or Devontae Smith, they really don't have the luxury to be taking this player, and they really shouldn't be taking it until they fill out the rest of the holes on the offensive line and in the defense. You look at this draft class, and it is stacked with wide receivers. This class has so many good wide receivers from rounds 2 to 7 that taking a wide receiver in the first round truly doesn't make sense for the Detroit Lions. I can name you 15, 20 guys that will get significant playing time next year at the wide receiver position to come out of this draft class alone. I mean, outside of the big 3, you have Rashad Bateman, you have Terrence Marshall Jr., Kadarius Toney, you have Rondale Moore, Elijah Moore, you have, Dwayne Eskridge, you have, Tylan Wallace, you have all these guys, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Diami Brown, and you have all of these players that will get really good playing time and will be effective for their NFL football teams, that the value at 7 isn't there for a wide receiver. As an NFL team and as a person that watches a lot of football, you can't justify taking a wide receiver at 7 when a wide receiver at 41 is going to be not that big of a difference. The difference between Ja'Marr Chase and the best wide receiver to go in the second round is not as big of a difference as Rashawn Slater and the next right tackle, or the next tackle in the entire class. The difference in talent and the difference in production is not significant enough for me to say you have to draft a wide receiver at 7 or else you're not going to get a good player. You can say that about Rashawn Slater. You can say that about Penei Sewell. You can't say that about this wide receiver class. You can make the argument that they're outside the 2 big time tackles in this class, being Rashawn Slater and Penei Sewell, there's not going to be an all-pro caliber, Pro Bowl caliber tackle or an offensive lineman to go in the rest of the draft, especially on days 2 or 3. In case of the wide receivers, yeah, Ja'Marr Chase might be a Hall of Famer. Devontae Smith might be a perennial Pro Bowler. Jalen Waddle might be a perennial Pro Bowler, but you're going to get ample production. You're going to get very similar, very good production out of Tylan Wallace, out of Diami Brown, out of Rondale Moore, Elijah Moore, Kadarius Toney, Terrence Marshall Jr. Those guys are going to produce just as well. Maybe not quite to the level, but they're going to be right there as far as rookie wide receivers. They're going to be right there as far as production in the NFL. In like I've said multiple times, you can scheme production in the NFL. You can scheme your wide receivers opens with motions and rub routes and quick things and quick slants. You can scheme wide receivers open, and as long as they are not completely incapable of running routes, or as long as they have a little bit of talent and a little bit of skill, you can have successful wide receivers. Jared Goff never had a real true number one wide receiver when he was in LA. I would not consider Brandon Cooks a true number one wide receiver. I would not consider Robert Woods or Cooper Kupp or Gerald Everett or anybody else in that Rams offense a true dominant number one wide receiver, and yet they were able to go to the Super Bowl. Yet the Rams were able to take Jared Goff in that honestly lackluster offense or lackluster receiving core and take them to a Super Bowl. You know why? Because Sean McVay is a smart guy. Sean McVay is a very, very creative play caller. He makes a lot of different schemes that schemes his wide receivers open, makes the reads very, very comfortable, very, very easy for Jared Goff to process, and that is where Jared Goff saw his most success. There's no reason Anthony Lynn can't do the same thing. There's no reason Anthony Lynn cannot come up with a scheme to use Tyrell Williams, to use Brashad Bateman, to use guys like, Quintez Cephas, guys like, Khalif Raymond just got signed, Damon Radley just got signed. There's no reason that Anthony Lynn should not be able to come up with a scheme to use these wide receivers effectively. Is there a true wide receiver one in this offense? Honestly, probably not. If your wide receiver one is Tyrell Williams, you're really not in the greatest situation. You're not in the worst situation in the NFL. There are far worse wide receivers in the NFL than Tyrell Williams, and there are far worse number ones in the NFL than Tyrell Williams. However, I wouldn't consider him a true dominant force on the outside from what we've seen from him in his NFL career. But you can scheme wide receivers open. You can really, really make it difficult on a defense to track your wide receivers, especially with motions, especially with rubs, especially with, those intentional but unintentional screens that offenses like to run nowadays. They can scheme wide receivers open, and you can get better talent in the second round and better value in the 2nd to 7th round than you're going to get in the 1st round for a wide receiver. So when you talk about the Lions' best drafting scenarios, the best possible scenario they have would be trading away their 7th overall pick and accumulating as many high draft picks, as many top 100 picks as they can in this year's draft and next year's draft. The second best option would be to draft an offensive lineman, solidify the offensive line, and really set this offense up for success long term with their young, talented offensive line. And the worst, by far the worst option would be to take an offensive weapon with the 7th overall pick. Now, with all of that being said, that is all I got for you guys today. Thank you all so very much for watching the video. If there's more Lions news or more Lions rumors to come out by tomorrow, of course, I'll make another video talking about it. But with all of that being said, that is all I got for you guys today. Thank you all so very much for watching the video. Let me know down in the comments below, what do you think the best and worst situation would be for the Lions come draft night? But with all that being said, that's all I got for you guys today. Thank you all so very much for watching the video. I will see you all tomorrow with more Lions content. And as always, before we go Lions.